All right, let's do a quick recap of the injuries that Coach Tomlin mentioned during his press conference on Tuesday as we head into the week with the Colts coming to town on Sunday. The good news is the Steelers could potentially get back Kevin Dotson, James Conner, and Vince Williams. Of course, Coach also high praises for Benny Snell, who filled in for James Conner last night in Cincinnati, and also Eric Ebron and Derek Watt, who are dealing with injuries from in-game, are still being evaluated, so not a lot of new information there. But guys, let's talk about the defense. And Arthur, what did you think of their performance last night? I know a lot of the focus, of course, especially in that first half, was on the Steelers offense, but what was happening with the Steelers defense?
Yeah, I thought as a whole the Steelers played well defensively. I thought Ryan Finley surprised a lot of us with his legs and just the situational running that he was able to do. I thought that was the thing that really caught the Steelers off guard, and it affected them, especially on some of those possession downs. I like how they did a good job, though, of minimizing the big plays. I think outside of the one catch to A.J. Green on the sideline, they did a good job of minimizing the chunk plays through the air. But it was one of those scenarios where typically this defense has been able to create turnovers. They've been able to generate, not only turnovers, but critical red zone stops as well. And yesterday, they weren't able to do either one of those things. We weren't able to see the turnover that we typically get. They really didn't create that hostile environment for Ryan Finley on passing downs either. And just in the red zone, obviously, they were able to score touchdowns on their possessions and not settle for field goals, which typically the Steelers have been able to do such a good job of forcing teams to do. So as a whole, I thought they played at a B-plus level. Could have done a lot better, but those two areas, though, no turnovers in the red zone, allowing the touchdowns, to me, were the parts that left the bitter taste in my mouth.
Matt, what did you take away from the Steelers' defensive performance? You mentioned a little bit earlier, Vince Williams, again, not in the lineup, hopefully getting him back against the Colts, and we know they're already down with a number of starters, season-ending injuries.
Yeah, and of course they got very little help from the offense, and that's a big part of, situational football and whatnot. I agree with a lot of what Moats said for sure. Some of the stars came to play, Watt, Minka. I thought Nelson had a real good game. A couple things that worried me or concerned me, but overall I thought the defense was more than good enough to win on any given Sunday. Was, the Highsmith play was concerning because you start biting on those and you don't recognize that Finley might keep it. That's what offensive coordinators and offensive coaches are looking for, and they find those weaknesses, especially with young players, and attack them. And frankly, I would have liked to seen the defense adjust more to Finley as a keeper, as a runner earlier in the game, to be very honest with you. I think Williams coming back is big because I don't know that Finley was capable, but that second level of the defense to me has a target written all over him. And a guy like Rivers will pick it apart.
Now, Prisuta, if you look at the numbers, the way the Steelers offense is performing is comparable to last year, 2019, where there was no Ben Roethlisberger, and the defense obviously had to step up a lot last year. Do you feel like they kind of need to get back into that mentality where they are going to have to do a little bit more than maybe playing complimentary football?
They're going to have to start scoring points. I mean, that's what was the first 10 games? It was 29.9, I think, the average per game. And now it's 4 straight under 20. But nobody's picking anybody up all of a sudden. I mean, the first half was circumstantial to me for the defense. The Steelers couldn't have put it on a tee for the Bengals any better. But let's not pretend that drive in the second half didn't happen either, where the Bengals ran. They went 80 yards in 9 plays, and 8 of them were on the ground, and the quarterbacks run. I mean, they played Finley last year. They're one of the few people on the face of the earth who has played against Finley. They should have known that this stuff was coming. The Bengals completed 7 passes out of 13 attempts for 89 yards, and they won an NFL game by 10 points. There's all kind of problems with that, but
that sounds so crazy. Like what?
Hard running on them. It wasn't Joe Mixon. It was another makeshift offensive line. The Bengals have been throwing that together, 5 at a time, week by week, based on who's ever healthy. And the Steelers did not dominate the way I was convinced they would going in. I was having a hard time understanding ways that Cincinnati was going to score points going into this game. I didn't account for 3 turnovers in the first half. And then, compounded interception by hitting a guy 15 yards out of bounds and giving him another 15 yards. These, to me, are signs of the wheels coming off I don't know how you get them back on.
All right, Moats, give us some motivation, since we know you can do that, of why we should be carefully optimistic heading into this game against the Colts.
Well, first off, the defense is going to be getting back healthy. Matt pointed to that, man. Having Vince back out there is going to boost that linebacker play. Avery Williamson is a really good player, but you have to remember, he's only been in this defense for 6 weeks this season. So he's still getting more comfortable. He's still getting acclimated. Obviously, you're playing Marcus Allen next to him, who is a safety by trade, who has had to adjust on the fly. But Vince being back out there, you're going to get true linebacker play, the toughness, and just the ins and outs, and just a tone setter. That's what he's going to be to that defense. So that's the first reason why I'm very optimistic about the Steelers defense. Now with the Steelers on offense, we saw a couple of things. Number one, we saw Benny Snell emerge. We saw Benny Snell show that he can be a guy that gets 20 touches a game. I mean, he had 18 carries for 84 yards. Then he had 3 receptions out the backfield. He was very productive. And the receivers as a whole, this was one of their better games in terms of just ball security and getting open. That wasn't an issue yesterday. So if on offense, it all is going to boil down to 7 and just being accurate and better decision-making and better timing of his passes, just based on our track record with 7 this year and dating back through his career, all signs point to him adjusting and getting that squared away. So if he's the only person I have to have a little bit of nervousness about, I'm confident in that. So that's why, to me, I feel like you should be very optimistic about this team going forward. Now, not saying it's going to be easy, but those are the reasons to be optimistic about it.
All right, Matt, are you buying Moats' optimism? Or are you falling near Prisuta level?
I'm closer to Mike on that one. Those are all really good points. I also think the left guard situation has been a disaster, and that's bound to get better here with Dotson returning. That will be very helpful. I like what Snell has done. This team, every team is very dependent on their quarterback in the league. That goes without saying. But the way they play on offense, they're so Ben dependent that it left them a lot of, very little room for error. And that's what we're seeing right now. If anybody can get it right on this team and change the way they play in, it's definitely Ben Roethlisberger. But history also shows that these older quarterbacks, it's not that they lose their arm strength or, their athletic ability. Sure, some of that stuff happens, but a lot of times it's the rigors of the season that gets them late in the year. And if that's what's going on, and we saw it with Brady last year, Breeze last year, I don't know that it'll come back, but it has to. And I hate to swear one guy, really zoom in on one guy, but it falls on 7 shoulders.
All right, Prisuta, did we make you any more anti-Grinch-like?
Well, I do want to let you guys know that after we're done with this, I'm going to go to the Arthur Moats lecture 2020. It really wasn't that bad of a year overall.
It'll get better.
Silver lining. Just find a silver lining.
If there's a way back, it's through Ben Roethlisberger. It's more passing, not less. I don't, the running game maybe can be the compliment that it was last night. What gives me hope, if not confidence, is that we heard the same kind of stuff that we're hearing said about Ben Roethlisberger now. We've heard that about Phillip Rivers this year. We've heard that about Drew Brees this year. We've heard that about Tom Brady this year. And, sometimes one of the reasons these guys last as long as they do is they figure stuff out and they get back to playing at a high level. So I'm not saying it can't happen, but really discouraging to me, not just the streak here, but, the game before the 3-game losing streak, the JV Ravens ravaged with COVID, and that Bengals team last night. Again, Ryan Finley was playing his 8th game. It was his 4th career start. Their offensive line was a mess. They had a whole bunch of good players on IR, and they had not been competitive to an NFL standard since Joe Burrow was knocked out of their lineup 14 quarters ago. And they went out last night, just did whatever. I mean, you got guys running down the field with interceptions, showboating, because that's where they were mentally. They had no fear, no concern, no uncomfortable, nothing. They were just out there looking for the next guy to light up.
No, Prisuta, you're absolutely right, man. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Their energy, I felt like early on, they definitely had a lot more energy. They played with a lot more swagger and just toughness about them early in the game. I thought in the second half, we started to catch up to that and match it, but we started out way too slow from an energy standpoint, man, without a doubt.
A stat no one in Steelers Nation will like: the Steelers are now the only team in NFL history to have 11 wins and lose to 2 teams with 4 wins or less. So take that for what it's worth.
Can I just say something about that for what it's worth?
Mm-hmm.
I think that Washington team's not bad, particularly with Alex Smith. And that defense is – I know the record was what it was going into the Steeler game, but that's the game that bothers me the least out of the last 4.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Last night was definitely the one where you were like, woo.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, guys, I hope you have a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Thanks for joining me here on the Extra Point Pursuit. We hope you don't get coal in your stocking. Steelers and Colts Sunday, 1 o'clock here at Heinz Field. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you next week.
You know, much like I said last night, I don't know that my feelings have changed. Some 12 hours or so later, man, it still stings, and appropriately so. You know, we just have to perform better, particularly at the early stages of games. You know, what's gone from bad has actually gotten worse in some instances because we're turning the ball over.
Hi, everybody. I'm Missi Matthews. Welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. It still feels just as bad as Coach said. The Steelers losing on Monday night to the Cincinnati Bengals, 27-17. One final game here at Heinz Field coming up on Sunday against the Colts. So let's recap yesterday's loss. Now 3 losses in a row, and I will introduce you to our panel of M's today. Arthur Moats, Hall of Famer, former Steelers outside linebacker. We also have Matt Williamson from Steelers Nation Radio and Mike Prisuta from the DVE Morning Show. And guys, you heard Coach and just kind of the tone that from all of the Zoom calls last night from the players. You start 11-0, then you lose 3 in a row to now be 11-3. Arthur, what happened?
Yeah, it still sounds crazy. You saying 11-3. I'm over here checking it like, it's really that? Like, gosh, happened so fast. But to me, I think this is a situation where we've seen issues with this team, both offensively, defensively, and special teams throughout these past couple of games. And we never really saw these issues get addressed. We always just kind of kick the can down. We always just kind of say, well, you know, you still can get away with it. We can figure this thing out. But now here we are 3 weeks in a row now with having negative performances, and we're still seeing the same issues. We're still seeing the lack of a prolific passing attack right now. We're seeing a lack of consistency in terms of the running game. And I did think that Benny Snell played really well yesterday, but there still was some areas that they can improve upon. And then situationally on third downs offensively, that was still something that they need to address and get handled. As much as, you know, these issues keep popping up, I guess the silver lining is it isn't a new issue. So even though it's something that we're going to have to fix, and we've known this for a couple of weeks now, it's nothing new. So that still gives me hope. That still gives me that feeling that we're going to figure this thing out with these next 2 regular season games, because you're going to have to get this settled come playoff time.
Matt, Coach Tomlin said today the way they prepare, the way they proceed is going to stay the same. It's just as simple as Arthur said, fixing the known issues that we keep talking about. Is it as simple as that? Do you feel like guys are still buying in that they can turn this around?
I have no doubt about the buying in part. I have doubt about the turning around part. I mean, there's some major flaws with this team right now. I'm excited to get presumably Vince Williams and Dotson back. I mean, those have been very weak areas that have been exploited for some time now, the last couple weeks. But the philosophical thing that I think absolutely needs to change is on offense. Is the whole offense is predicated around that short passing game, and when they do stretch the field, it's always a go route down the right sideline. So think about all that field that they don't attack, and it has to happen, or they're just too easy to play against.
Prisuta, where do you feel the vibe is with this team? 3 losses in a row. I don't think anybody could have predicted this after the start that they had to this crazy 2020 season.
I think they're stunned. You know, we can go through the minutia or the popcorn, as Mike Tomlin likes to reference it. But those Zooms last night sounded to me, at least, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it sounded like a bunch of guys who were trying to say what they thought they were supposed to say. Cam Hayward said he was ticked off, but he didn't sound ticked off. Mike Tomlin was very matter of fact. Wasn't he fuming just a couple of games ago? Ben Roethlisberger didn't have much to offer on the field or after the game. I think they remind me collectively of a fighter that's gotten hit in the head a couple of times, and he's trying to figure out what day it is and what round it is and how he gets himself out of this position he's got himself into. It is not encouraging. This just in.
All right, Ben is always the first to admit, Arthur, that he needs to play better, and that helps the offense. Where can we see Ben rebound and get back to a point where they are able to put points on the board, not turn the ball over, just the mistakes and bad things that we have seen happen these past 3 games?
Yeah, without a doubt, that's the encouraging part. Obviously, the downfield accuracy, that has been something that he struggled with throughout the season. As much as us in Pittsburgh, we wanted to find different ways to combat that. The statistics have proven that over the games that have been played, they've struggled to connect on those passes. But to me, the 2 areas that he can improve on right away, number 1 is his decision making. We obviously last night, they pointed to a couple of instances where, okay, you force the ball into a coverage where you probably didn't want to go with the ball, and you miss a guy who was running wide open potentially for a big play or a touchdown. Those are some of the things that I would like to see him improve on, which I fully believe he can improve on. The second thing is the timing of some of these underneath routes. We saw yesterday him being a little bit late on some of these throws, and that's honestly happened the past couple of weeks, even dating back to Buffalo when we saw the pick 6. It was a pass that was late, and it was just bad placement on it. Those are things that he is more than capable of improving on. He doesn't struggle from an accuracy standpoint when you're talking short to intermediate. If we're talking about your longer passes, sure, but he can improve mightily on just the timing of those routes and his overall decision making on some of these passes.
Matt, is this something where the wide receivers can help Ben and also his offensive line? It felt like last night he was getting pretty beat up back there.
He was, and Villanueva was getting whipped on a consistent basis by Lawson. I thought the offensive line did play better in the run game. I mean, if you're going to throw him a bone here a little bit, but the protection was questionable. But as for the receivers, I thought the receivers played a great game. I thought Deontay was open all night long. I thought Claypool potentially could have converted on a lot of big plays, including a pass interference late that wasn't called. By no means was this on the skill position players. I mean, I thought Snell played a good game, and all the pass catchers played very, very well and didn't hurt the offense whatsoever. I hate to limit it to one guy, but 7 really hurt the football team last night.
Prisuta, where do you stand in terms of getting this offense back to where it needs to be, knowing you have the Colts coming here to Heinz Field on Sunday, and the Steelers have had chances the past few weeks to clinch the AFC North and haven't been able to do so?
You know, just by nature, I'm not nearly as optimistic as Arthur Moats. I do think Ben Roethlisberger, his resume is littered with winning performance after winning performance, but to the points of both of the guys, but you pass up those deep shots to Chase Claypool. That guy was the playmaker for you for 2/3 of the season. Why is he suddenly not throwing that ball? Why is he missing Deontay Johnson when he does make the right read and he's behind single coverage? Why is he overthrowing that early in the game, right off the shoot? We saw the play in the 3rd quarter where he morphed back into the old Big Ben and rolled to his right and extended the play. And then Claypool got himself open in the corner and he just missed him by a little bit. These are touchdowns they're leaving on the field. Randy Fichtner's talked for a long time now about Ben's in-helmet experience and what an asset that is. I'm trying to figure out how a guy that has that kind of asset going for him can see his game unravel to the point that it has. Can he get it back? You would presume, but I'm still trying to figure out how it got to this point.
All right. Sorry, go ahead, Arthur.
I was going to say, and Mike, in response to that, I think when you talk about the popcorn issues that they've had, this is what you're alluding to. 1 minute, all right, the passes are on target, but you're dealing with the drops. Then, okay, you start getting them catching the ball, but now you're dealing with the passes being late and bad reads. So when you talk about the offense as a whole and the struggles, that's what it is. I mean, you can't have it where 1 week we're catching, next week we're dropping, 1 week the passes are good, next week the passes are bad, 1 week the offensive line does really good in pass protection, next week they struggle in pass protection, but then they do better in the run game. You're just not going to be able to form any type of consistency. But for me, I always just lean back on Coach Tomlin and leaning back on him and just saying, man, he's going to find a way to make this thing right. He's going to find a way to get those guys playing together and executing all on the same page. As difficult as it may be at this particular stage in the season, as unlikely as it could be because of the past 3 games, I still see little things where it's like, all right, we're not going to act like that third quarter didn't happen when we saw the offense moving the ball. We're not going to act like we didn't see that happen in the third quarter of the Bills game when we saw the offense move the ball. We know when Deontay is a focal point of that offense and is catching the ball, how well that offense moves. So to me, I still see hope. I still see, man, it's there, but we just got to do it more consistently. And that's been the biggest issue right now.
And as Coach Tomlin said today, guys, we are going to run into the kitchen, not out of it. He wasn't talking about just Christmas. He was talking about the Colts game. We are going to talk much more about the Steelers' loss to the Bengals here on the Extra Point. We'll be right back.
What's up, Steelers Nation? It's TJ Watt. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers official YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on everything going on in the Steel City. Thank you for being the best fans in football. Here we go.